Cool. Welcome,
Hello,
everybody.
everyone.
This is our official Saint Treme graveyard discussion. My glasses are so dirty. For All the Sinners Bleed
Come on.
by S.A. Cosby. Alrighty, let me clean my glasses. How's your Sunday going?
It's okay. I slept most of it. I was trying to read. I was joining people's sprint, but I kept falling asleep on it. But I did get 80 pages read of Bitter Root.
Okay, are you almost done?
No, I'm reading the omnibus, and it's like close to 600 pages. I've already read it before. I just really love this comic.
Okay, so it's like a reread.
Yeah, I don't reread often, so I said maybe I should reread before Blackoween is over.
Cool. Okay. Well, I want to be mindful of everyone's time here this Sunday. So let's start with ratings. What did you rate All the Sinners Bleed?
Oh, good question. Let me go to my story graph. 'Cause I don't remember what I rated. Oh, is there anybody in the chat?
Yeah.
That means I can't see people then. Okay.
No, you can't.
I rated it 4 stars.
Same. Hi. You finished just in time. I actually finished yesterday. Bria
Ooh.
read it earlier this month.
I read it a long time, which is very shocking. If you're a patron of mine, you know me in book clubs. There's something about it. It is hard for me to do it.
5 stars. That's good.
Hmm.
So I have some questions prepped here. So let's start here. For did you like the book, and where does it rank in S.A. Cosby's entire discography?
Have you read a lot of books by S.A.
I've
Cosby?
only read Razorblade Tears, and now
Okay.
All the Sinners Bleed.
Okay. Let me pull up his books.
I'm gonna bite my pizza because I'm hungry.
No, go ahead. Well, I haven't read My Darkest Prayer, which I probably should read before the year is over. Maybe I'll add that to my December TBR. Because I only have 5 books so far. Well, Blacktop Wasteland, I gave a 3.25. It was good. But I liked Razorblade Tears more.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave that a 4 stars, and then I gave All the Sinners Bleed. To be honest, All the Sinners Bleed, that 4-star rating feels low. I'm about to change my rating right now. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Um, I would say
Okay.
it's the best one I've read so far.
This one's the best.
Yeah.
I I'm still 50-50. Like there are some things that I think was just executed really well in Razorblade Tears, and I don't think that I can judge this book off of those characteristics. Like this book stood out and was strong in different ways. So I can't pick a favorite.
So the reason why I like this book, so let's look at it like this. Razorblade Tears and All the Sinners Bleed are neck and neck for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have different aspects of blackness or intersectional blackness in both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they cannot be compared. I agree with that. The thing about me is that the pacing of a book will really change my rating of a book outside of anything else. And I feel like Razorblade Tears, as far as like when things happened in that book, was a little bit slower than the pace in All the Sinners Bleed for me. So All the Sinner Bleed felt like it was moving along, like developments of things was happening in a quicker pace for me than Razorblade Tears. Not that it's a bad thing or not, but pacing will really make me be like, oh, like are we gonna get to it?
Yeah. You touched on something that I think is probably my favorite aspect of S.A. Cosby is that he challenges intersectionality of blackness.
Mhm.
Black and poor, black and rich, black and positions of power, black, like
Yeah,
he forces you to like, okay, you're in a black perspective. Now let's look at the world.
yeah,
And all these other things, and I just think that that is so beautiful to see in
yeah.
like crime fiction novels.
Yeah, because Blacktop Wasteland is like, what happens if you grew up poor and you start getting into like gang violence or selling stuff, and what happens when you're trying to get out of it and you're trying your best to get out of it, and you started a life and now you have a family, but they keep pulling you back. So what do you do? Like, it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just entered his, and it's like grit for me. His books is like, I feel like they would, if they were written a while ago, they will easily be books that Denzel would play, or like
Yes. Oh, I would love to
I
see
would
that.
love, you know what I mean, like old school Denzel. I'm not saying current Denzel ain't got it,
You
but
know
what?
what? His son should play
Oh,
this.
oh,
If this was to be
oh,
adapted, Denzel's son would be
yeah,
the perfect sheriff.
perfect,
Uh,
perfect. You know, and I'm not trying. I'm no shade to Michael B, but you're a little too pretty.
yeah, like Denzel and his son really get that like rugged.
That, yeah, that grit. That I would even say Idris
Mm-hmm.
on in there too. So to me, it's like one thing that I love about all his books that I've read, that there've never been a book that I'm like, I'm gonna just pause and not listen to. Like, it feels like an action movie happening in before your eyes, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So I like really appreciate that, and I also appreciate the scope of his mind, that he's not afraid as a black man to write about topics that seem like, oh, we shouldn't talk about those things, we shouldn't do those things. And he just, his character development is also chef kiss.
Yeah.
The inner monologue of his characters, the man needs an award. If y'all didn't know that I like S.A. Cosby, here we are on Beyonce's internet talking about it. I
So it
gotta.
looks like the chat really enjoyed. We got a lot of the lowest seems to be like 3.5. If this is your first essay Cosby, I
Challenge,
challenge you to pick up another one.
please,
Please. He's
please.
doing his novels to me will instantly become must reads, instantly become classics. Because again, he acknowledges the different platforms in life that we all come from, and then he levels them. It's like we can be different and we can be the same at the same time
Yeah,
from like our perspectives, and I just think that that's so powerful. It would be a definitely a great
yeah.
movie.
I don't like, it's not a secret, but he is an auto read for me. But I need to go back to
Idris would, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I got some pretty deep questions.
Okay.
Let's start off a bit light. So, what part of the book evoked the strongest emotion or the most emotion from you?
I just want to pause and say Monet is doing a great job, ladies and gentlemen, and theys. And she's just doing a great job with, I love coming to a book club and they pop up the question. Oh, it just tingles me. It tingles me. Those of y'all who watch my Black Classic Book Club, y'all know I be having the questions popped up. I love a good popped up of a question. Use your StreamYard, people. Use it. Anyway, no shade. It could be a little. But anyway, what part of the book invoked the most emotion for you from you? Um, I would say, well, I don't know if we're going to the end of the book, but the most part that invoked the emotion for me is how raw he was at acknowledging that there are black folks in the world who don't believe in God and don't believe in the institution of church. Black uh, religion, Christianity specifically, is so deeply interwoven into blackness, especially in the South and everywhere too. But I only know from the South because me and Monet
Yeah.
are Southern. So it's to have him talking to a pastor and be like, God left me a long time ago. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, God
Mhm.
didn't show up for me in these moments. Like, what are you talking about? Like, everything can't be a prayer. Like, get out of here. And even like having those thoughts and still wanting to be close to his father and be there for his father and still have resentment for his father in the ways that he didn't show up for him when he needed him when their mom died. So it's just that the I just felt really tied to that idea of not being a churchgoer, not being a follower of Christ, but also still wanting to be very close to someone in your family who is not. Like, I am not a follower of Christ. I'm not a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
but my granny is. So it's like I love her, and it's like that tug of pull of her being like, you're not praying enough, and I'm like, praying to who? It's just a situation. So it's like it's one of those things that I truly appreciate, but I also appreciate how he wasn't also like demonizing people really for their love and their devotion into Christ. Because I'm always being like, if you pray, pray for me, kind of situation. I
Yeah.
even told me that recently. Like, if you pray, pray for me, because it's like I'm accepting of them prayers. Some people got the gift of manifestation. I'm gonna just say that right here, right now. So, not to be long winded, but I'll just shut up.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I do have some questions. We're gonna dive into the religious aspect. I think for me, having been in a position of power, the part of the book that got the most reaction out of me was when he kind of took off his badge and leveled with him and was like, "Hold on," because like you are insulting my position, but
Oh
you
yeah,
gotta not take it personally. So before I respond to you, let me take off this badge so I can level with you, black man to black man.
yeah.
No, next time you say something like that, you're gonna be going out of here on the stretcher.
That was the most gangster scene. I said, not outside in public. People can see you near the car. Like, dude
And then
said,
he put the badge back on, and it's like it
yeah,
reminds me of, especially in the black community, your credentials only work on lower levels. Once
yeah,
you start going up in that elevator, people challenge every trial and tribulation, every struggle. If,
every
if you
struggle.
can bear your struggles and they can see it, then it's like your struggles and your cultural appropriation in the black community needs to be visual. Right. So
Yeah,
just knowing your history and then seeing or people seeing you elevate, they start to immediately be like, oh, she's acting different. Oh, he's
yeah,
being real coonish. And it's
yeah,
like, why I gotta fight on both ends with my people and with the rest of the community, and that just triggered a lot out of me. But I think Titus did a really good job of watch your mouth.
yeah,
I'm from where you from. I got
yeah,
the same pain, trauma, hurt. I got the same scars. I used to scuffle with y'all in the backyard. Watch your mouth.
right, right. And I feel like sometimes, as a person who's from the hood, grew up in the hood, it's just like, don't let the way that I'm talking right now makes you think that I'm above it.
That I won't get down real quick.
That I'm above it. Because when you go to hell, I'm going to the earth core. So look at us. Look at us. Two hell goers. Don't try. Like, I hate when people hear my voice or see my degrees or see whatever and be like, oh, I
Don't.
was in the same sandbox as you. The same one.
It's like people forget those sound. Not that they forget them, but they discredit them. It's
Yeah,
almost as if the further you get away from your struggles, or the more success you gain, the further you get away from your blackness. As if blackness is a struggle. And I challenge that perspective every time I
yeah,
see it.
yeah. Because it's also a part of white supremacy. It's being like, oh, you can't be black enough because you have all these things, as
Mhm.
if black people are also not entitled to those things, as if black people can also reach certain goals or whatever. It's a part of white supremacy. It's that crab in the bucket kind of mentality, that it's just unfair to people who are choosing different paths in life. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, I know very successful people who are, doing different, like, I can't say too much, but I'm like coding stuff, but like, who do, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Still successful, still there for the hood, still doing, but still and the other people who are and still showing up. It's just different type of successes. Let's not knock them.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
not knock them.
Yeah. No, this was a really good moment as well. I think that his mindset going into the march is I need to be the law and I need to be as disconnected from this event as possible because legally they have every right to hold this march, even though it's offensive, even though it's a slap in the face. But I think that there was a reckoning once he saw the white supremacists really do this. And he's like, it's weird because he's from the same town. Like there's black roots here. And so just taking in how many people that are a part of this community that are being, it's a slap in the face to everybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
As if they don't exist.
yeah, yeah. But it also, I also find it hard when you are a black person and you become a part of systems that, or that you become, I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say. It can be difficult when you are a black person and you become a part of a system or a career that really perpetuate white supremacy in a visual way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when I say, I'm talking about law enforcement. So I can imagine him having that internal dialogue of being like, I want you to trust me, but what you represent is danger. What you represent is get out of here. I can't do this, or I can't talk to you, or you untrustworthy. So how do you like battle that? Like, even as a therapist, like, I know the history of psychology. I know the history of what psychologists in the past have done to black and brown bodies. So while I'm trying to get people to normalize mental health and normalize talking about something, I also recognize that I am also a symbol of danger. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how do you get a part of those careers and have to juggle that and still be like, hey y'all, I'm the same breed? Because people are like, really, you're not. Acknowledge that first. I get that we can both get down, but
Yeah.
acknowledge that. Just acknowledge that.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that. Just let it
No,
go.
I get you. I think it's easier when you are in the infrastructure or in the institution, because then you can recognize it for the breakdowns that it was and the
Yeah.
failures, not as an institution, but the people that were in power and what they failed to do. Versus on the other end, it's one entity. It's a
Yeah.
failure as a whole. And then
Yeah.
for you, it's like yes and no, right? There were
Yeah.
people who didn't do what they were supposed to have done.
Right. Right. And so then you fighting for your life as a visible black person. You fighting for your life to be like, yo, I'm trying to work on it. Like I'm trying. You know?
So when they found, yeah, I think I remember. I'm always gonna remember how he responded when he was like, why is no one looking for these kids? And he was like, their families are.
And that's where it ends.
But it's no secret that when it comes down to media coverage, blonde hair, blue eyes,
We're gonna get it every
you
time.
don't get it every time.
Yeah. What was that white girl recently? And she was in the car with the boyfriend, and the boyfriend killed her and ran off.
Was it recently?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, it was all it was. I think her last name was given Italian on the low.
Mm,
Gabby something, wasn't that her name?
I need to look this up.
Yeah, it was all over the news. Like, people are still trying to figure out what happened to Joan Bonet, or whatever her last name is. They are still trying to figure out. But I haven't heard nothing about Alex. What is her name? Alexis Anderson or Patterson?
Patterson, is that her name?
Yeah,
No, and Titus, I think he compartmentalizes so well to show up in ways that are important, like refusing to tell his childhood best friend over the phone that his son has died, or driving, through the night to go to a mother's door and knocking on it and knowing that she's on the
oh
other
yeah,
side,
yeah,
dreading opening that door. And he's like,
yeah,
when you look back on this moment, you hate me right now, but when you
yeah,
look back, you're gonna appreciate the humanity, right?
yeah. And that had to be hard for him. And when, like, and then going through, and how S.A. Cosby wrote, like, the stages of grief that black woman felt when he came to her house and told her that her child was murdered.
Yeah, yeah.
That was really hard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, hopefully you can watch the playback, the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Internalized racism is a mother.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's like we are one person of a big, like we're one cog in a really big machine, and then it's a much more of a hindrance when you are entering an institution that has been predominantly white.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to break down those barriers, but we still don't hold positions of power. So in order to infiltrate these spaces and bring in equity and diversity, we have to start at the bottom, which means that in some way we perpetuate it without choice. Because we are in the field, but we don't hold position of power. We don't write the policies, those kind of things. And so if you're
And
starting at
the
the bottom,
culture. And the culture.
yeah.
Like it's um sorry. And it's a culture thing because it's also like you have to be careful when you come into systems that are predominantly white and that perpetuate white supremacy, um, and individualism as well, and not community based, because it can have you being like, oh, okay, well, this is okay, and I'm gonna join in. And it's like, no, I remember one time I was with a group of therapists and they all were mad because they found out, one of the therapists found out that her client was smoking weed, and she just like got so upset, and all the rest of the white therapists was like, yeah, like how does she think that she's gonna get anywhere if she just smoking weed and da, da, da. And I'm sitting there listening and I'm like, weed? So I go, Sarah, uh I saw you talking about how you can't wait to go home and get to that glass of wine. Isn't that not the same? Bridget, I heard you talking about I can't wait to go home and eat this little donut situation you got on. Sugar is addictive. Is that not the same? So we're out here dehumanizing a person for smoking a joint. Meanwhile, y'all are messing up these cookies and brownies and wine like it's y'all job. We have to see the hypocrisy. It's hard. Oh, I don't know if our girl Monamus is muted.
Oh yeah, sorry guys. Taking a bit of a pivot. Religious belief and religious anger is an intrinsic theme throughout the novel. Do you think that his apathy towards religion and his cynicism aided or hindered him throughout the investigation?
I don't think it hindered or aided him. I think it's just a personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that a lot of time, and I say this all the time, I think that religion provides hope for people who don't have hope, or
Mm-hmm.
people who can't manifest it on their own all the time. I think for me, religion is a coping skill. Some people choose to use it, some people don't. And I feel like it's apparent in the community that he was in that a lot of people use religion as a coping skill to kind of deal through the hardships and the horror that they're are facing. And I feel like for him, he's just going around trying to do his job. And I felt like at every turn, and I could be projecting too, that every turn that people are like, "What about religion? What about religion? What about religion?" What? And he's like, "I'm just trying to do my job." So for me, I feel very neutral on that.
That makes sense. I feel like at some points throughout the book, his his cynicism to me kind of helped him because everybody has this is Sharon County. That's the best teacher we've ever had.
Yeah,
This is a church going community. Like
yeah,
his cynicism allowed him to see through like things that people just didn't want to see. And he knew that like once I share this information, I'm gonna shatter their world. Let them hold their visual. Let me let them hold their candlelight service because I'm about to rock the foundation of everything that they think they know. And I
yeah,
think that having had a breakdown in his religious belief, like having had what he feels like God leave his side and abandon him, and experiencing that, it gave him more compassion for how he maneuvered throughout certain situations of like, yeah, I understand this heartbreak and this pain that you feel or that you're gonna feel once you find out the truth.
yeah, yeah. And I also really liked to like extend from that. I really liked his care on being like there is a way to give information. Like there's a way, and when he found out that deputy told somebody and how it spread it around like wildfire, I understand why he was upset by that. And it's like you don't, hearsay doesn't help situations like this. It just doesn't help situations like this. So I can understand how he reacted the way he did, and to find out that one of his deputies was lining his pocket instead of being there and helping the community.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, how he's trying to be like, no, let me help you. It's like, you already going to hell, sir. So it's like, what are you doing? Like, and the thing, and I say that as a non-Christian, a former Christian, of being like, hell still exists to me. You're going,
Mm-hmm.
pack it up, sir.
Speaking of Titus, since we're focusing on him, I feel like Cosby made it a point to show that Titus was not infallible.
Uh-huh.
So when you got to see his flaws, did that break your faith in his ability to do his job?
No.
I thought it was weird because I was like, this is such an imperfect individual,
Yeah.
somebody who has benefited from the system, who
Yeah.
has taken a life and gotten away with it mostly because of the badge that he wore. Someone who, harbors thoughts of infidelity, possibly.
Yeah.
And so it's like he made it a point to add as many flaws to Titus as possible, yet my faith was unshakable. Like
Yeah. And it was like, he got it. He
I
got
wasn't worried about a thing.
Yeah, I'm like, he's got it. And I also thought, when we found out that, why he was no longer an FBI agent, right?
Yeah.
And when we found that out, I was just like the white cops.
Yeah.
I just was like,
I think it might be a jaunting thing because from our perspective, right, we have white officers who are racist and they hold positions of power.
yeah,
And then you assume that when they get away with stuff, it's them protecting the white individual, when really it's about them protecting the power of the institution.
yeah,
So it was a jarring experience for him to get the same treatment and realize that yes, it is about race, but it's ultimately about
the institution.
it's ultimately about the institution. It must go on. We're not going to let one black man tear down the institution. So
And
we
that
will,
goes, yeah, and
yeah,
that goes back to the culture thing. Like, I find law enforcement culture, military culture, to be very interesting, because it's giving cult. I'm sorry. It is giving cult. Like, it's interesting.
I
I'm sorry.
wonder what it is about Cosby's writing that he can, and I've seen this in Razor Blade Tears. He can give you some really trash characters, but
Yeah.
somehow that still doesn't take away from like the mission and like the focus of the story, or like them being the vehicles that drive the plot forward. Because
Agreed.
I'd be like, these people are awful, but I'm here.
I'm here and you find yourself rooting for them.
You,
You find yourself, that's why I said his character development is chef kiss. Any writers in the chat and you're like, man, I'm trying to figure, you need to read his work.
yeah, yeah, because he gives you imperfect characters, and
Yeah.
it reminds me of like this religious saying, and I'm not the biggest religious person, but you know how they say like God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. It reminds me of that, of like, these individuals are not the central characters of this story because they have a perfect track record.
Yeah.
It can be unqualified in so many ways, yet we're still going to use them to tell the story,
Man,
and it works.
listen, it's kind of like that story. Oh my God, I forgot. It's called Redeeming Love. Have y'all heard? If y'all know what I'm talking about, hold on. Redeeming Love's like Francine Rivers. I read this book. It's a Christian book a long time ago. And when I say a long time ago, I mean a long time ago. I read this book. Hold on, I'm trying to give y'all. So it's the story about um oh my God, I forget which Bible story it's about, but it's about this woman, and she's, she's a sex worker, and God tells this man, like, hey, you need to go to her and make her your wife, or show her the way or something. He's like, no, are you sure that's my calling? And God's like, it is. And he's like, I'm not sure. And he's like, you need to go meet this woman, talk to her, whatever, whatever. I forget what the exact direction he gave her. And then he is like, every time the woman is fighting with him. She's not trying to not be a sex worker. She thinks that he's full of shit. Like, she's just not trying to go with him at all. And he goes back to God and he's like, are you sure that it's me that's supposed to be the mug that do this? And God's like, sir, get up over there. And he goes and she battles with him again and keeps battling. And he's losing his faith in God because he's like, why am I keep doing this? And the girl is not trying to mess with me. So it kind of reminds me of that when you said that, of being like, your calling is still your calling. Like, you gotta go ahead and go over there.
You gotta do it. And I think in this social climate, it is twice as powerful because we sometimes as a society expect perfection, and we assume that someone who's made mistakes cannot be the pioneer or cannot be in a place of like redeeming qualities, right? And I think that he challenges that perspective of like, you can admit that someone has done all of these things in the past. And I'm also talking about razor blade tears, right?
Yeah.
How can you have two homophobic fathers seek justice for a homophobic murdering, right? So he challenges, because in the real world, outside of his novel, we're like, well, you should have loved your sons when they were alive, you know?
Exactly. and that to me, when people say that particularly about razor blade tears, and that's when I think you and I got two different things out of the book. If out of the whole book, that is what you got at the end, that's what it boiled down to. Why didn't they show up for them in life? I'm like, we read two different books.
We read two different books. It wasn't about that. It was about the fact that I am at my wit's end. I have no other option. There's no other way to honor my son and my betrayal, my lack of showing up. There's nothing else I can do but make sure his murderer goes to jail. It's not about redemption. It's not about forgiveness. It's just, I messed up. And so, like, at some point, you don't get to a place of like, you have no other option. Like, there's nothing you could ever do. There's always something that you can do to try to rectify situations, however you can. Okay. And Cosby makes it a point to do that in his novels.
Yeah.
He does. His characters are very, very multifaceted. Okay, so this one here. This is a quote from the book. He's saying that there's no place more confused about his past and more terrified about his future than the South. And that hit me. I had to pause. Yeah. The historian in me, because Southern patriotism, we already know that.
I do not get it.
Southern patriotism, you would have thought they won the war.
The war.
You would have thought they won the war.
The war. I have so many quotes that he said. Hold on. It's because to me, it's like the South does its best on trying to be like, oh, like that didn't really happen, or try to like brush it past, like that didn't. It's for example, in New Orleans, when people were around the U.S. was trying to knock down statues, Robert E. Lee, so many statues of that man is in New Orleans. And people started knocking them things down. And when I tell you, the white folks thought that it was a second coming, like they thought the world was over. Like, how could you do that? This is our history. And it's like, history of who? Who is this man benefiting? Like,
the Southern delusion.
The delusion is what fits into confusion about his past and more terrified about his future in the South. Because it's like, they're so mad that they can't hold on to the racist things that kept them going in the Jim Crow era. So they're like, so where do I stand in the South? So now we have people being like, oh, well, actually, plantations are beautiful. Let's have a wedding there.
They have rewired their perspective of the South being the last line of defense against government overstepping.
Yeah.
They will tell you that it was not about racism, but an overstepping of government forces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This there's this assumption that like morality would have came around eventually. We would have freed them eventually.
Yeah.
God would have laid it on our hearts to let them out of their chains and bonds eventually. Like
Yeah.
y'all keep forcing a moral change before it's time. And so it's like they're more offended that there are forces and institutions that can force them to do something
Yeah.
than they are about what they did wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, I think because of the culture in the South, and a part of this quote, I think that is a big reason why I don't think we would ever get to a point in the US on Turtle Mountain to actually be like, hey, we fucked up. We did this, we acknowledged this happened. Start doing land back, kind of reparation. I think we can't. We're too divided. The South want to hold on to Jim. Jim and his descendants are out here really thriving. They just out here really trying to hold on. And it's a sad thing. I wanted to pivot a little bit and read 5 quotes that I wrote in the book. I should have kept writing because I was like, dang, these are good.
He
So
has some good lines.
some good lines. So the first one I put, a lie can be halfway around the world while the truth is still pulling up his britches.
Yeah.
I said, oh.
Yeah.
Another one is, I don't got to do nothing but stay black and die.
That's a classic. That's a classic.
I said, I love you. Is this a weird proposal? SA? I don't know. Are you single?
I
Like,
don't do nothing but stay black and die.
I don't gotta do nothing but stay black and die. And then another one was tell the truth and shame the devil. I have heard that one. That the Southern phrases is what really what got me. And then he said, "We're all alone. We just train ourselves not to believe it."
Mm-hmm.
And then another one is religion is just another crutch like liquor and weed. I said, you trying to get the church ladies to beat you up. Like, why would you say that?
No, because like his father's inability to like come to reality, I do think that religion hindered it. It was pray harder, go to church, God will never forsake you. And Titus is asking real hard questions of like, what if God does everything for a reason? What could ever possibly be the reason for the treatment and the dismemberment of these kids?
Yeah.
How can you justify that?
Yeah.
And his father's just, well, pray, and we don't know. We don't know God's plans.
Mm-hmm.
We can't assume or presume to know, what he. And it's like, it feels like a discredit, like
Yeah.
a
It's like,
discredit.
dang, we're all delusional. That's crazy.
We're all delusional. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I had one more pre-prepared question, and that is about Latrell's murder. It was
Yeah.
controversial in a lot of ways. Do you think it would have been so thoroughly investigated and publicized if Latrell was white?
Yes.
You were so confident. I didn't. Because
And I say that because we're in the age of technology. I don't know if we're still, I keep saying the age of technology. I need to fact check that. But our technology is increasing and increasing, and people are becoming more and more and more aware. So I think even though there are a lot of things that are stacked against us as Black people, I think that it's the gap of that is getting smaller. So I think that because it's getting smaller, I think that people, maybe I'm being hopeful. I'm
I
just
think
saying.
I mean, pushing back on you a little bit, I think that you are being hopeful because, like, by comparison, maybe twice as many white men are killed every year by the police as men of color, and we never hear their names. We never hear their names. And so part of me is like, it probably would have been much more of an open and shut case. They probably would have not gone through the trouble of getting a third party person to review the footage, or maybe Titus himself would have not felt as uncomfortable if Latrell was a white individual, because knowing the numbers, there's more white people in America, so there's more white arrests, which means that there would be more white dead individuals from cop shootings than any other race, and yet we, like I said, we don't know any of their names. They're just a number. They're a statistic at the end of the year when they tally up the numbers, and it is part of our community of like, when there's the death of a Black person, we start asking questions because we know y'all won't. And it's becoming more like that for the death of Hispanic individuals, especially Mexicans as well. They're starting to ask more questions because they know that they won't. But I don't know that the white community rallies in the same way to
they don't. Yeah, I concede.
You're so funny.
What?
You're like, yeah. I don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers for you guys in the chat. It's been like 2 or 3 years, but I do know that more white men are killed every year, like in terms of quantity. But we don't.
That was good for you to remind me of that, because that is kind of like one of my pushbacks when people be like, Black on Black crime, da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, if you look at the population breakdown here, we talk about 13% of the population is Black and over 40 something is white.
Let's talk about how Black people, and then I'm talking to my folks. Why do we think we more than 13%? We would have thought that we represent half the nation.
I ain't gonna lie. Let me tell you why I was a part of that camp. I'm gonna tell you why I was part of that camp. Because I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. That means it's giving Negro. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere. So when I left New Orleans, the only time I saw Black people, white people, is when Mardi Gras started. And I was irritated with that. I'm talking about they made my back itch. Do you hear me? It was just so much. They came, tore New Orleans up and laughed and left and had a good time. And I'm like, dang, y'all leaving us to pick it up. But, and I'll never forget that white man who got so drunk when I was 6 years old and I was at Mardi Gras, and he pushed me and stepped on my toe really bad that the toenail came off. You are going to hell, sir. But other than that, I just never seen them.
Right.
So when Katrina happened and I had to relocate to Wisconsin, I said,
where the niggas at?
Where are we? And I was in Milwaukee on the south side where everybody is there. But then when I went to school, I said, so everybody ain't Black? It was a culture shock. I couldn't believe it.
I think it's because Black people, we live in clusters, and it's so easy for us to think that we represent a larger percentage of the nation than we do. Especially for me, because I grew up in a historically Black neighborhood. All the elementary, middle, high school, all Black. Black principals, Black deans, everything Black.
Everything.
Like, I went to like the equivalent of like HBCUs, but at every level of school, and that's how it was for everybody. So when I would leave and I would go to other places and I would meet kids that are like, oh, I really want to go to an HBCU because I want to experience my culture, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? I always, people be like, oh, I've never had a Black principal. I've never had a white principal.
I had one.
I've never had a white principal.
In high school? Yeah, I did. For about a year, I had a white principal.
Oh, we had in my high school, we had one white kid. His name was Cody. Everybody knew him because he was the only one. Cody Shepard. The only non-Black person in my school was 99.998% Negro.
It's giving how you remember the man's last name. Shout out to you, Cody, because you did the Lord's work.
No, for real, shout out to Cody because he's actually a dean at the school that we graduated from. So he's now really one of the first non-Black deans at our historically. And the school that my family and I graduated from, or that we went to, it is the first Black high school in Florida. So it was literally the first Black educational institution in the entire state.
Wow.
So Cody he's now a dean.
Come on, Cody.
So it's like everybody knew he was a cool white kid. He won Mr. Senior. He was Mr. Jones High School. We voted for him. He was down with the Brown. Okay,
we voted for him.
His wife is Black. He got beautiful brown mixed kids.
Oh, he said I'm in here for real.
I kind of dated Cody, but I ain't gonna.
You dated Cody?
Not officially, but he worked at Wet and Wild, and I needed the tickets. But it's not about my history.
Monamus.
It's not about my history and my need to go to Wet and Wild.
Cody, there. Cody.
But anyways, yeah, so it's hard, like even my mom, like just telling those numbers of like, actually, I think at this point it's less than 13%. I think we're like 12.4 because we're not having as many kids as we used to. So like letting my mom know that like there's more Hispanic people in America than there are Blacks. Black people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. We're just a smidge above the Asians, baby. We just beat out the Asians.
Listen, it's man, the population breakdown. When I learned that, I mean, at the time I learned that we were 12, and then I think I must have saw 12.7 and said round it up because I'm black. We gonna round up, baby. We are going to round up. But when I saw that, I said 12% Louisiana. Like I can get you, but you talking about in the whole America?
Oh man, and then we get to other places, and personally, I feel uncomfortable when I'm the only black person. Like if I travel and I get out the car and I don't see no other BIPOC individuals, I silently want to get back in the car.
You know what else makes me uncomfortable? So where I live is 3 black people. It's me, my best friend, and my other friend husband. Just us. Just us. In a town of 10,000 people, it's just us. So when I first met him, I did like this. The dude stared at me. I said, we need to talk right now. He goes, Bree, what's up? I said, you didn't see me look at you and go like this? He goes, I thought you saw me looking at you and I thought it was enough. I said, you've been around white people too long. Next time I headbutt you better lift your chin. When I lift, you lift, we lift. You understand me? Like, what are you doing, sir?
There's nothing more, like, I think, traumatizing than playing like Black Card Revoked. That's when you find out who grew up with black people and who didn't. Because I'll be looking around and some of the answers like, what do you mean you never seen a different world? What do you mean you never seen Martin? What you don't know?
When I started quoting Living Single one time in college and nobody knew, I said, I got to go. No, I'm just kidding. What I will say is, in college, I'm trying to think if there was another. In the groups I hung in, I was either the only black. Well, in every group I hung in, I was the only black American of slave ancestry.
Yeah, that's different.
And I've shown like Monet, my friends, like the Africans, all of them are from countries in Africa or the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. I'm slave ancestry. I'm just showing up, nigga. So it's that, you know, so in every group, I was just the only. So of course they're like, what? They're talking about different type of chocolate shakes they had as a kid. I'm like, Nestle? They're like, Brie. So really I get it. You know, diaspora, there are different things. And I've had to force them to watch Martin and Living Single with me. I said we cannot go on like this. Like we cannot go on like this.
If you have never seen Family Matters, if you don't know Laura and Steve Urkel, we cannot be friends. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. You got to know Stefan Urkel. If you don't know who Stefan Urkel is, I can't be your friend. I'm sorry.
Stefan was smooth. He was smooth. Give his coin.
If I make a joke about Waldo, Geraldo, Faldo, and you don't get it, the friendship is over. No, this was a powerful one as well, because then you can really feel the emotion from Titus when he said, "Faith broke my fucking heart."
Yeah.
How we use religion as a coping mechanism when the power of Christians to deny things unmatched. You can bottle it up.
Pope. I always bring it back to the Pope. I'm sorry. It goes back to the Pope.
But the race of the sheriff, yeah.
Listen, but the race of the sheriff might have fought more scrutiny. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah. Tiffany, Fifi, TV, you in your bag.
See, I'm from Florida, and there's parts of Florida that I've never been to and would never go. Like my husband was like, he was watching some TikTok and they were in the Everglades, and so he asked me a question. I'm like, why would you think I've ever been to the Everglades? When we leave Central Florida, we stay in the car until we get out of the fake mounds. There's some parts of Florida that I would never go to because I know better.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Once I start seeing the Spanish moss, I got to go. And there is anywhere in the South, and I say that as a woman who have Spanish moss all through my house for allergy reasons and what my great grandmother used them for. But soon as I saw seeing Spanish moss hanging from a tree, I start thinking about the popple seed. I start thinking about strange fruit. I'm in Billie Holiday's mind, and I got to go. The
You know
moment
what?
I see a pole in the middle of a 4x4 truck, I got to go.
As somebody who's also from the South and from Florida, let me tell you something. If you see Spanish moss, you're in the wrong area.
You're in the wrong location. Turn around immediately. What that song said? Turn around. You got to go.
You gotta go. You gotta go. Yeah. Not Tiffany. You trying to have us here? You trying to have us here all night?
You are, because the Dominicans. Okay, anyway, let's continue.
Bree, we're not even gonna touch it.
Because I'm like, how?
We're not even gonna touch it.
You're not even gonna acknowledge that a sorbet action of Negro, just a little bit.
Yeah, then make them what? It's crazy. You know, I have African friends that bring a whole new meaning to like what it means when you call yourself black and what it means when you call yourself African American or whatever.
Yeah.
And the way that we share experiences of racism and experiences of oppression, but we don't share a lot of culture.
Yeah.
It's like, why I got to give you the background knowledge to my joke? It should have been funny the first time. Now it's not as funny because I got to tell you the
diaspora. You must. They must, and you must. We must, as a group. We must.
You know what? We're gonna keep working at it. We're gonna find a way to connect again. I know we are.
But I also feel like, and this is like a side note, for me, I give Africans who come to America a lot of grace because they don't know our culture. I give them a lot of grace. And more than anybody, honestly, I do give them a lot of grace. And because to me, it's ignorance, it's not intentional. This is how I read a lot of things. Like, I have a friend who's like one of my closest friends. I would die on the hill for him. He'd do the same for me. We're very close. However, when I first met him, I met his brothers. Like, I know the whole family. It's 14 kids. They're from Ethiopia. I met his brothers before I met him. And his brothers were longer in America, have experienced more things, so they understood more things as it relate to being black and of enslaved ancestry. One of my friends who's in this friend group, she's Somali. And when we would have more Africans come into our friend group who just got to America and would say just things out of ignorance, she would always say, when a cop pull you over, they're not being like, oh, that person's Somali, the other one's black, we're both Negro.
Yeah.
She would say that all the time, right?
Yeah.
So this friend that I'm talking about, when he got here, he was freshly, he was new. We called him FOB in the group, but he would like come and then he would be like, you know, I just don't get this about Black Americans. You guys are lazy. Da-da-da-da. He's going off, you know? And to me, I never internalized it because it was ignorance. And to me, I try to judge of what I'm telling you, how much of a difference it's going to be. Am I going to waste my time? I judge all those things, right? So for a lot of people who come into my life and there's just some ignorance there, I say the best teacher is life. Life is the best teacher. It's not me, and I don't have the energy for it right now. So life came for his ass, and it did. Life, you know, the white folks showed up as themselves for him. Fast forward 5 years in our friendship. We've been friends for like 15 years now, but 5 years in our the 5th year in our friendship, he was like, Bree, I really need to apologize to you because I said a lot of things and I did a lot of things. And those things were very false. They were untrue. I shouldn't have said those things to you because now I recognize that I am a Black man in America and they are looking at me like X, Y, and Z. They're not looking. That mug is Ethiopian. They are. And he, like, now he gets it. Yeah. But at first, even when he was saying all those hurtful things, I still, like, you know, 20-year-old Bree was still like, life will happen. Like I'm gonna still be your friend. Life is gonna happen, and
I
when life
think you.
happens, you gonna come
Life
back
in
around.
America, being black in America,
It's gonna happen.
it's
It's
gonna
gonna
teach
happen. It's
you.
unfortunate. It's
Yeah,
super unfortunate, but it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? It gotta happen.
yeah. If you've never seen Living Single, Color Purple, yeah. What? Where have you
You
been?
don't know when I say me and you are never apart. I got to go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, no, Stefan Urkel. I need you to not have just watched one episode. I need you to know the show.
To be honest, I haven't watched Family Matters in so long. So if you was to give me some like, callbacks, probably most of them I won't remember.
Oh, you gotta do a rewatch.
I'm rewatching Living Single and Martin because I need those memories to come back. Yeah, I mean, there's just certain groups that you can say certain jokes to. And like in this group, that's what we say. Ain't nobody fresh off the boat recently, but we do have a couple. But they cool.
They do, and I'm gonna share. I'm gonna overshare a bit here, but there's indoctrination of prejudices towards specific ethnic groups, and it's really hard to break yourself out of that when you are in your adulthood. And so I'm going to switch it here where I grew up in Florida. We have mostly Haitians and people from the Caribbean. We have a lot of Cubans, Colombians, Puerto Ricans, and Dominicans. And so in my neighborhood, I never experienced Mexican culture. And so I grew up hearing so many awful, horrible things that I won't repeat about Mexicans from Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. And so when I moved to Texas, where everybody's Mexican, I have to actively work to rewire things that I've heard from other communities, right? This is not something that my family was perpetuating or myself. It's just you hear these things constantly, and so you get a culture shock when you experience that culture, and you're like, well, why would the Puerto Ricans say such awful things about Mexicans that don't even appear to be true?
The
So like
diaspora war is rough.
the diaspora is rough because there's tension and contention between people that share ethnic roots. And there's a judgment. So I don't think that is something that's specific to Black culture. Because I've seen it. We have a lot of Brazilians in Florida as well. So like
Yeah.
I've seen it perpetuated
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah. I remember being after Katrina, I went to a school on the south side of Milwaukee called Pulaski. That's where I graduated from. And at the school, it was like half Black, half Latine. Of the Latine, it was Dominican, Puerto Rican, Honduras, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Honduras, and Mexican. Y'all know me now. Y'all know I be friends with what? Everybody.
Everybody.
It's just I am my mother and my father's child. They will be friends with anybody. They don't give a damn where you came from. I am a result of them. I am friends with everybody. So I would constantly be getting like my Dominican friends would get mad at me if they saw me at the table with the Puerto Ricans. The Puerto Ricans getting mad at me if they saw me at the table with the folks from Ecuador or Salvador. Sorry, and then the Blacks is like, "What are you doing with them?" I'm like, "I ain't giving y'all all time. Like, well, what's the situation? Like, why we got a beef? What's the beef for? Like, I just don't get the beef. Or the beef would be like, oh, their Spanish is bad. You understand Spanish is a colonizing language like English, right?
Yeah. So they're
Like
gonna
that
speak it
probably is
differently.
not even your language. So we got to understand history here. I used to be so confused and low key mad, and sometimes I would be mad at all of them and just eat by myself. Like y'all irritating me. Shit, I won't eat none of y'all.
I did not mean to trigger a core memory for you.
I used to go into Miss Kuiper. Shout out to you, Miss Kuiper. I would go into her class and be like, "Oh, they getting on my nerves," and she'd be like, "Woo, all of them." And I'll just sit to everybody. So I'll just sit there and eat with Miss Kuiper while she jammed to Mary J. Blige because I just could not do. I'm just like, what is the issue? Like I mean, they used to be mad at me, pissed.
Yeah.
They used to be looking like. Are we really this mad?
Well, thank you all for for joining our live discussion about all the sinners bleed. um, let's see. Yeah, it does. It does. But I can't say that
Around this.
centered whiteness is the only reason why BIPOC communities bicker.
No, I think it's by design as well.
Yeah, I think that
It's by
we
design.
got a long way to go. First, we got to decenter whiteness, and then we got to come to terms with reality. Then we got to come to terms with real hit. Like we still got work to do beyond
I
decentering whiteness.
I think, and I hate to be this person, but I do think that if communities would understand the history and our educational system would be better, I think a lot of things would be it will lead more to apathy. I mean to empathy than segregation. Just separate
Yeah,
like I just really believe that understanding where you come from can inform where you are and how much further you need to go. And I feel like there's just so much fake news. There's so much, a lot of things is built off assumptions, stereotypes, and none of it is built in fact. And a lot of people don't understand that race is a constructed term. Like it's just a lot of things that I think that if we understood where they came from, the purpose of them, we can break some walls down. But
yeah,
now we're just going off of stereotypes and what the first think piece that came on and what they said and how they said it. And we're not fact checking. We're just not doing the work. The critical thinking is down the goddamn street. Do you hear me? It's on Boulevard of what the, and of the fuck. It's just not making sense. And I just really think that we need to get together. And I'm sorry about that. I just can we just understand a little bit? And our educational system is trash too, so it doesn't really foster that. But it's just like
yeah, yeah. I concur with everything you just said. Critical thinking, critical analysis,
down the street.
it's gone.
It's I don't even think we even know how to spell critical thinking at this point.
I don't.
A country. We don't know it's spelled with a Q. And I don't know how we got to the Q in the alphabet when there's clearly a C right there.
You know what makes me mad is when someone will be like, "Oh, I saw this," or "This information was put out," or "They are saying this." Who's they? Who are they?
Yeah.
Or like this was put out by I don't know this and this website. What credentials?
Yeah.
We're
And
not. We're not even in terms of fact checking. There's a way to fact check, and
yeah,
you're not even looking at who is publicizing it. You're looking for the fact that it was printed, and you run with it,
yeah,
not the credibility of
yeah,
people who
yeah.
said
And don't get me wrong, doing all that extra work can be exhausting.
it. It
And
can.
and what I'm saying can be viewed as elitist. I also want to acknowledge that. Like it can be that and it can be exhausting. But I feel like it is exhaustion work that must be done. Like we must figure out how we can do it, if there's levels to it or what that means. Like my best friend is big on fact checking. I can't tell Winnie that the sun is yellow without telling her how I got there. And it is exhausting. And it's been a 15-year struggle. Winnie's not trying to hear nothing I say if I'm not telling her where the hell I got it from. I can't say a word. Do you hear me? And
Yeah.
it is exhausting. I will tell you that. It is exhausting, but you must do it.
And sometimes it can be easier. Like I think after the whole lawsuit and litigation, like don't send me no article from Fox News. I just feel like, please
Don't make me fight you. I just
don't send me nothing from Fox. I
and
wouldn't even
don't send me nothing from CNN either.
none
I,
of them.
I don't know why people think that's a reputable news source
Don't
because
send me nothing from Fox. I wouldn't even let Fox tell me it was 71 degrees outside. Don't send me nothing from CNN. I wouldn't believe them if they told me it was Tuesday.
and none of the ABC 9WTFGG local news.
BBC,
I don't want to do that.
NSBC, none of them.
Well, where you doing it then? Dang, that's crazy. Now we blasting these folks. But it's life.
Anyways, I'm gonna hop off here because we've been on for an hour. Again, if this is your first essay Cosby, please pick up another one. And thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for participating in Blackoween. Because we're at
Oh
the end.
yes, it is Blackoween. Yes,
Yeah, it's
good.
Blackoween. I was investigator thorough.
You were.
Like Treme Graveyard this
You
year.
were. You were. You were. I realized I was investigator thorough on like 3 other locations that I didn't plan for. So like.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining. Have a great Sunday.
Bye.